In 2015, China's robotic fleet grew to the same size as the United States robotic fleet. That was in 2015. Pretty long time ago. 10 years ago now, basically. Happy New Year. And last year, more than half of all robots sold were sold to China. More than half of all robots sold were sold to China. And 44% of all robots in the world are already in China. So very soon, more than half of all the robots in the world will be in China. Very soon, more than half of all the robots in the world will be in China. So China is leading robotics in a very serious way that I think the West is not yet aware of.
What is DePIN?
Yes, it is the Internet of Things, but it's also a necessary economy of things, to borrow a term from my good friends at Peak. The economy of things is this idea that you should be able to contribute data or compute or other kinds of resources to a network and get rewarded for it. It of course has clear similarities with what Naval spoke about with the fifth protocol. Machines need to be able to exchange value with each other. So DePIN is the Internet of Things. It's also the economy of things. And ultimately, I think that what DePIN will become is something like the nervous system of AI. This is, something that the mountain and the mushroom told me.
Right.
AI can only deal with digital information, and the physical world is not digital. So when AI wants to act in the physical world, it has to perceive and digitize it. The world needs to become AI accessible. The world needs to become AI accessible. What does that mean? Well, it means that robots, drones, self-driving cars, embodied AI, all of these things, to be effective in the world, they need a couple of things. In no particular order, they need connectivity, of course. Like, they actually need to be able to connect to the internet almost everywhere that they go. But they also need mapping so that they can find what they are looking for. But they also need positioning so that they can find themselves. But they also need some kind of machine identity so that they can, find each other, talk to each other, trust each other, negotiate with each other. But they also need some kind of machine money, etc. Like, there's a checklist of things that you need to make the world AI accessible.
In a world filled with possibilities, one truth stands out. Everyone is a pathfinder in their own journey. Whether it's charting new territories in leadership, embracing the future with technology, or nurturing humanity, pathfinders are everywhere. Pathfinders, a platform built for everyone. We believe in the power of connection, the spark of curiosity, and the potential to inspire. Here we bring people together, not just as professionals, but as dreamers, thinkers, and change makers. Through engaging podcasts, thought-provoking digital conferences, and dynamic audio roundtables, and many more, we create spaces for meaningful conversations. We celebrate those who seek to understand, innovate, and lead. People like you. Pathfinders inspires. Pathfinders embraces technology. And above all, Pathfinders spreads a vision where leadership, innovation, and humanity converge to shape a better and brighter future. We are here to connect, to build bridges that transcend barriers, to share stories that matter, and to foster a community driven by passion and purpose. Be a part of this journey. Be a Pathfinder. Welcome to Pathfinders. Hey everyone, welcome to Pathfinders. Today we have pleasure of hosting someone whose vision is literally about augmented reality and robotics. Please join me in welcoming Nils Pihl, the CEO and founder of Auki Labs and Materialist Studios. Nils is not just an entrepreneur, he's a Swedish behavioral engineer and a social transhumanist who specializes in the intersection of modern technology and human behavior. He's also known as Brute Sugar, which we'll later get into in this podcast. His work at Auki Labs is at the cutting edge of augmented reality and robotics, focusing on building advanced peer to peer positioning protocols and AR cloud infrastructure. They're building the Posemesh network, as they call it. This technology aims to enable a new era of spatial computing, creating a protocol layer that might just be the foundation upon which the future of AR is built. Nils has shared his insights on multiple platforms like VR AR Association podcasts on discussing AR could be a major future for humanity. He's a thought leader and a powerful speaker. He has been a keynote speaker on multiple stages and also on TEDx Beijing. His Auki keynote on WoW Summit Hong Kong crossed over 1 million views on X, amongst many other feathers on his hat. We are here today to unpack these ideas, explore the journey of Auki Labs, and perhaps get a glimpse into how Nils sees technology evolving to enhance our human experience. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation with Nils Pihl. Nils, welcome to our podcast. Welcome to Pathfinders.
Thank you very much for having me, Vijay.
It's an absolute pleasure, Nils. Nils, like before we get into Auki or Posemesh or AR or robotics, please tell us like where did it all get started? Like how was your journey even much before you landed into China? How was the journey growing up in Sweden?
I was born when I was very young in Sweden in the late 80s to two software entrepreneur parents. So I had the great fortune of having a computer very early in life. I had a computer in my room when I was maybe 5 years old. So this would have been 1991, 1992. I had my first own computer and was encouraged to explore computers. And as a result, I found my way online at a young age. And I like to say that I actually grew up online. Today,
Got it.
or by the time I was 14, really, my English was already better than my Swedish because I spent so much time online in online communities in what felt already, in the late 90s, early 2000s, as the ground floor of the metaverse. Spent a lot of time online, eventually ended up in China, where I've been since 2009. I now live in Hong Kong since 2018. So I'd like to say I moved to China from the internet. And now I'm here in Hong Kong in the Greater Bay Area, working on the future of spatial computing, AR, and robotics.
Got it. No, very, very interesting background and you growing up from an early stage with computing. I think I'm sure it has helped a lot in your journey. Like, and I also see a major conviction in your commitment to China and the East and Asia. I'm sure they are probably like 20 years, 30 years ahead. I'm probably seeing it. I saw a video where a drone was delivering a packet or food for a person online. They don't have it here in the West yet. Amazon has been flirting with it for more than 10 years now. They already have it, I'm sure, in Hong Kong and elsewhere. But what was your conviction like around when you say 2008 or 2009? What was your conviction around China at the time?
I played a lot of strategy games growing up, right? Games like StarCraft and Civilization. And those games make you think a lot about, sure, what is the state of the game right now, but also how is the game changing over the next couple of minutes or turns? And I could see that the rate of change was so high in China in 2009 that if you plot that 1 or 2 decades into the future, you could tell that something big is going to happen here. And I got absolutely hooked. The scale of construction here is hard to understand. Since I moved to China, for example, so since 2009, China has built more high-speed rail than existed in the entire world before 2009, which is just crazy. They
Unreal,
are pushing the gas in a way that I don't think has ever been seen in human history, and I think that the Western world has not quite yet woken up to how fast this transformation is happening, and especially how much is happening in the field of robotics.
Right. Got it. Got it. Yeah. No, it's. I think China is underrated. I don't think people see it. I had my friend living in Shanghai, and then he telling me a lot of interesting stories. And when I see like from people like you again and again, like doubling down on China, I'm sure there's a lot of brighter future that we are not seeing yet. And but recently, like for a funny thing, like I recently ordered a DJI gimbal, which obviously came from China, and I was beyond impressed at at the kind of the packaging and the quality. It was like, yeah, it was like probably like Apple 2.0 kind of what they were delivering, and it was beyond impressed. I have to say. I mean,
DJI
coming
is
back
a
from
remarkable company. I think they
yeah,
control 75% of the drone market by dollar volume already. They were founded here in Hong Kong. Actually, they're not based in Hong Kong anymore, but they were founded here in Hong Kong. Just
right.
absolutely dominate the drone market and make incredible products.
Got it. Got it. I've seen people always like. For me personally, there's every time when it comes to comfort zone, I try to move out of it. I try to shake it a little bit, and then I move out of it. I've lived so far in 14 different cities, and like I think moving to every other city teaches me a lot. Right? I meet new people, and I try to understand humanity a little bit, one piece at a time. But comfort zone kind of like threatens me, right? Like that being said, like Sweden might have been your comfort zone also growing up there, and moving to Beijing. I'm sure like that's where that was probably the first city you moved, right? Uh, it-
I the first time I left Sweden was actually to move to Silicon Valley, and then from Silicon Valley, I did a stint in New York. So I had seen big cities before, but of
yeah,
course, nothing prepares you for what a big city means in Asia. If I can
right,
drop some stats, I like dropping stats. If you excuse me,
yeah,
VJ. New York is
yeah.
the biggest city in the West, right? It's the biggest city in the
I,
West.
I have some slides to show you on that topic. I watched
Yeah,
three of your keynotes, and I have some slides to show you on that topic.
sure.
And you can explain it as you. I got your point. Give me a second. Don't mind
Okay.
me interrupting, please.
No, no, very cool.
Uh,
I didn't know there would be slides. This is exciting.
no, no. I just like got like so.
All right, VJ, very cool.
Do you see it? Oh
Yeah,
no.
yeah, I see it. I see it.
Oh no. Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, so this is everybody, New York. Everyone knows what New York is. And obviously, I just wanted to get a glimpse of like Hong Kong, right? I mean, I did enjoy your opening at keynote when we started talking about the stats, right? And so please go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
So, New York is the biggest city in the West by a pretty wide margin. A very tall city, as you could see from the photo of New York. New York has over 900 buildings taller than 100 meters. But Hong Kong has over 4,000 buildings taller than 100 meters. Over 4,000 buildings taller than 100 meters. And Hong Kong is just a small part of an area called the Greater Bay. The Greater Bay is at the mouth of the Pearl River Delta. It is home to three of the top 10 largest ports in the world: Guangzhou Port, Shenzhen Port, and Hong Kong Port. So, a very big percentage of the world's trade moves through here. Uh, but it's also technically an area smaller than Greater Los Angeles. It's smaller than Greater Los Angeles, but it contains three of the biggest ports in the world. It's home to
Right.
87 million people,
Wow.
87 million
Wow.
people, and more high rise buildings than all of Europe and all of North America combined.
Yeah. That's twice of Canada. Canada is 40 some million. uh,
Yeah. Twice of
wow.
Canada in an
Wow.
area smaller than Greater Los Angeles. You can get from the south part of the Greater Bay to the north part of the Greater Bay in an hour and a half.
Wow, and unbelievable. Hey, explain. explain Hong Kong to someone like who doesn't understand. I mean, there is numbers, and there is potential, and because like what I did not understand is like, especially when it comes to robotics and stuff, like I mean, where there are less people, you need more robots, you need more humanoids, right? Especially in the West, there are not as many people really available to do a lot of these jobs, and like Amazon putting robotics in their warehouse all over makes total sense. And whereas comparing to 87 million population in a small packed area, and robotics is basically like kicking ass, right?
Yes, robotics is kicking ass for a couple of unintuitive reasons, right? So
Right,
you might, a lot of analysts think that, okay, the robot market is going to be particularly big in places where labor is grueling, like so it's hard to get the labor because it's literally backbreaking,
right,
or labor that is comparatively expensive, so we could replace it with a robot. Uh, and then they look at, oh, but labor is so much cheaper in Asia, so there's no market for robots in Asia.
hmm,
Uh, but first of all, labor is not as cheap here as it used to be. Tim Cook already pointed out many years ago that you don't go to China to get the cheapest manufacturing. You go to China to
got it,
get the best manufacturing. But
right,
you also have to consider that even if the cost of labor is marginally lower here, the cost of the
right,
robot is much lower here. So the value
right,
proposition for replacing uh, a staff member here is much higher economically. But
got
also
it,
in a place like Hong Kong, where the population is so high and space is so scarce, and because of that, real estate prices is so high, it gets difficult
right,
to have cheap labor with access to some spaces because they literally can't afford to live there. So
hmm,
there are many things about the economy here that are a little bit unintuitive. But the proof is in the pudding, right?
right,
In 2015, China's robotic fleet grew to the same size as the United States robotic fleet. That was in 2015, pretty long time ago, 10 years
right,
ago now, basically. Happy New Year!
yeah,
And um, last year, more than half of all robots sold were sold to China. More than half of
hmm,
all robots sold were sold to China. And
right,
44% of all robots in the world are already in China. So very
hmm,
soon, more than half of all the robots in the world will be in China. Very soon, more
right,
than half of all the robots in the world will be in China. So China is
right,
leading robotics in a very serious way that I think the West is not yet aware of. And part of the
right,
reason they've made this work is they've done this historic investment in this place, the Greater Bay, here in the
right,
Greater Bay, specifically in Shenzhen, which is maybe the most uh, famous place in all of hardware and robotics. As
right,
of this year, there are 1,300 companies just in Shenzhen, right, that work on autonomous driving. 1,300 companies just in Shenzhen
wow,
working on autonomous driving. And there are 50,000 robotics companies in the Shenzhen robotics ecosystem. So this is, of course, not all robot manufacturers. It's robotic software, it's
right,
robotic parts, anything to do with robotics. But it's by far the most vertically integrated production center in the world. Shenzhen is for
right.
hardware, what Silicon Valley is for software.
Got it. Got it. I had a conversation with my friend like probably 7 or 8 years ago. He was all into manufacturing and tool die making. It's like hardcore manufacturing, right? And he spent a lot of time in Germany, Munich, Frankfurt, Düsseldorf, like in different areas of Germany. And he had a like he was the yeah, I love Germany, right? That's where he was coming from. Then he had made multiple trips to China, to multiple regions. I don't forget the name of the city. I don't remember the name of the cities, but like the 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 feedback that he gave me after his trip was like, dude, China is the future Germany. And like what you're also telling me is China is the future Silicon Valley. So I'm hearing two different things, the future Germany and the future Silicon Valley, right? Like is that true?
The Greater Bay is kind of the Ruhr Valley and Silicon Valley wrapped into one, uh, and has a very good stack for building cars, drones, robots, embodied
Right.
AI. right? Like machines with intelligence. The best place in
Right.
the world to build intelligent machines is in the Greater Bay.
Got it. Got it. I also like took one other like comment that you made. We can quickly get into it as we saw the presentation. I just like this comment from Naval Ravikant. He made this code like internet needs a new protocol, the fifth protocol that is a native internet money to allow machines to exchange value at computer speeds. Your feedback on that?
So that quote is from a 2014 blog post that Naval wrote. I guess it was kind of about Bitcoin. He's taking it down now. Like it's not easy to find that blog post anymore. And I think it's because he wants to walk back maybe some of the predictions he made about
Got it.
Bitcoin back in 2014. But I think his underlying point stands. In this blog post, which was hugely influential on me, I was living in Beijing at the time. He spoke about a future where things like self-driving cars will need to be able to coordinate with each other. And
Got
if
it.
they're going to coordinate with each other, they need to be able to kind of negotiate with each other. Who goes first? Things like this,
Right.
right? If we're
Right.
thinking of a lane merge. And he thought the best way to allow for those kinds of negotiations to happen is to tie economic value to the outcomes, so that basically the cars could do nano transactions between each other, saying like, I am willing to
Right.
pay this much to get ahead of you, some tiny
Right.
transaction, which would be impractical for humans to do, but could be completely practical for machines to do. So he envisioned a world where machines could negotiate with each other and do nano transactions between each other to resolve conflicts. And he thought that blockchain and cryptographic currencies were going to become this native internet money.
Got it.
And because I lived in Beijing at the time, this super resonated with me. I could immediately tell that he was onto something because, again, for scale, here comes some more stats. There are more
Yeah.
cars on the road in Beijing than there are people in Los Angeles. There are more cars on the road in Beijing than there are
Wow.
people in Los Angeles. And the average commute by car in Beijing is 2 hours. If you do a quick back of the napkin calculation, you find that roughly the time it took to build the pyramids is lost in Beijing traffic every week. The time it
Wow.
took to
Unreal.
build the pyramids is lost in Beijing traffic every week. And that was high on my mind in
Right.
2014 because I had recently I'd ghostwritten an essay uh,
Right.
about about Beijing traffic and the scale of Beijing traffic. So since I had just ghostwritten that article, I was thinking a lot about how do you solve this, and I was
Right.
thinking about how are self-driving cars going to do it. And when I read Naval's article about internet native money, it's like, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, cryptographic currencies could become that native internet money. But I realized with time that Naval missed an important part of the puzzle, which is for
Mm.
cars and robots to be able to do this kind of negotiation about how to make use of physical space. They have to actually
Right.
be able to describe physical space. And if we're thinking of self-driving cars coordinating in traffic, to the degree that they don't even need red lights anymore, they just know how to swerve past each other,
Yeah.
etc. Then
Right.
they need to be able to communicate their position and speed to each other with
Right.
greater accuracy than you can get out of the GPS. And that
Mm.
became an obsession for me, right? Like, okay, it turns out that the positioning protocol that we have today and the networking stack that we have today wouldn't be
Yeah.
enough. Even if we had the fifth protocol, it wouldn't be enough to solve this self-driving coordination problem. We're going to need
Yeah.
a sixth protocol as well. Protocol 6 being a universal spatial language, so that all of these robots, cars, drones can communicate with each other about the physical world. And that's
Right.
what we started building ultimately in 2021. We started building this this protocol that we call the Posemesh and the Auki network to become this
Got it.
decentralized machine perception network that will allow the future of AR and robotics and drones to be able to communicate with each other about space and solve these kinds of civilization scale issues. And the reason why I think Hong Kong is the best place to do that is, one, the problems are bigger here. Again, if you can fix Beijing
Right.
traffic, you've done a huge favor for humanity just because of the scale of the city. But also the proximity to Shenzhen makes it the ideal place to sit and work with robotics. Just a fun fact: we've been working on an augmented reality wearable here in Hong Kong headquarters, and we were interested in getting a one-off, special-made camera. Like, one had never been made like that before, and we
Right.
contacted a company in Shenzhen, and they produced and shipped that camera to us within 2 weeks. Right. So from us
Right.
calling
Right.
them and be like, "Hey, we're interested in a camera that has these properties,"
Wow.
it was
Yeah.
on our desk 2 weeks later.
Wow. It's like putting your order on Amazon. You're basically manufacturing it from the moment you're calling someone, and like white glove service delivering it to your doorstep in 2 weeks. Wow. That's like productivity like 1000x.
I think it's possible that is not an exaggeration. Yeah, like things with hardware move incredibly quickly here.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't like to like trying to be critical or anyone, but at the same time, speaking facts, right? Because like everyone wants to do better. I think especially when it comes to efficiency and productivity, and I think time matters, schedule matters, and a lot of these things matters. What do you think is the West is not understanding, or have gone, or maybe missed the boat on this?
I think one of the unfortunate downsides of our otherwise very just democracy is that it can be hard to take a long-term perspective on things, especially in America.
Mm,
The future runs on election cycles, and
mm,
that makes it hard to sit down and be like, where do we want to be 20 years from now? Where do we want to be
right.
20 years from now? That's not as easy for the Western powers to do. There are
Mm,
many other things that the West absolutely excels at. But when it comes to uh, making a plan and sticking to that plan, uh,
right.
changing market conditions through changing popular sentiment, um, China is right now the unbeaten champion. In the
Mm,
early 2010s, they had a vision of what the future of robotics and AI would be, and they
right.
just pushed year after year, month after month, week after week, day after day, hour after hour, just an uninterrupted sprint that they saw would change the geopolitical landscape. And I
Mm,
realized, in 2009, 2010, when I first got there, that if I, as a science fiction fan, want to be part of history being written, I
right.
have to interface with China. There's no version of this century where China does not play a huge role. Um,
Right.
so it's not betting on China necessarily. It's just the realization
Right.
that if you want to see the future, you can't ignore China.
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, I see that. Yeah, I'm. No, I think for anyone listening or even like observing the overall, like not the geopolitical situation, but the overall, like the global influence on products and services that people are bringing to the market. I think I just want them to pay attention to what's happening in the East more, and then maybe grab the opportunity, right? Yeah, the future Silicon Valley or the future Germany. Yeah, I'm the way I see it, Nils, is like I wish like people learn from it and also adopt it and apply it locally. Right? What if there is a future manufacturing capital in New York or Toronto or wherever? Right? I want like so or in Sweden, right? For that matter. So I want that to be an essence. Draw the inspiration and then apply it locally as well, and keep improving. Can you deliver from like from MVP to doorstep in 2 weeks? Can you do that? That's a challenge, right? So definitely I'd love people to observe that scenario, what's happening. I took something from your quote that you tweeted some time ago. You said, like, it's not even the same game. Civilization scale infrastructure funded, owned, and operated by the people. This movement is a new chapter in human economic history and will be more impactful than anything blockchain has done so far. And you said, yes, DePIN is greater than crypto and crypto is greater than Bitcoin. Your comments on it.
So, for those that don't know, the DePIN movement is about decentralized physical infrastructure networks. So the
Right.
idea that things that require physical components out in the world, like Wi-Fi extenders or 5G extenders, um, satellite
Yeah.
trackers, anything that's out in the physical world, that this can be collaboratively deployed. Instead of having
Right.
one central organization going out and installing all of these 5G extenders, for example, you can
Right.
encourage people to buy their own extender, like make their own little capex investment, a micro capex investment, go and deploy that thing, give them some digital tools to help them figure out where to deploy that thing, and then provide them a financial incentive to do it by sharing the upside of the network's performance with the community. So this is
Mm.
uh, almost like the logical conclusion of capitalism. It's the logical conclusion of capitalism, where ultimately the organization has boiled down to its smallest possible entity, the individual agent. So you get
Mm.
this massively distributed and shared capex. One big company does not have to invest billions of dollars and hire thousands of people. Instead,
Right.
you do this collaboratively. And DePIN, I think, is the first truly, truly impactful use case that blockchain has had. And I think in the
Right.
fullness of time, we will recognize that Satoshi's legacy was not the invention of Bitcoin, but rather what
Mm.
happened downstream from the invention of Bitcoin, that it
Right.
spawned this decentralization movement that ultimately led to the DePIN movement. And DePIN is just a new chapter in human economic history. There's no way we're putting that back in
Right.
the box. It is a more efficient way for a civilization to manage its infrastructure. So just like, you know, China has been very good at making long-term plans because
Right.
they have a political system that allows them to make long-term plans, and it's hard to compete with that. It's very hard for big corporations to compete with the intelligence of the free market and a collaboratively
Right.
deployed network. So I think that
Mm.
future history books will talk about projects like Helium, for example, that deployed almost 1 million physical hardware devices out into the world in the span of 1 to 2 years through a collaborative effort. Just absolutely crazy. They installed physical infrastructure the way other projects plant trees. It just
Mm.
completely unheard of scale, completely unheard of scale. And today, of course, they are one of uh, the blockchain projects in the world that makes the most real world revenue, especially if you
Right.
ignore, I always do, DeFi. Um,
Got it.
I'm not interested in
Yeah.
in the world of DeFi.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very fascinating. Deep and decentralized physical infrastructure network have been like at least like working around like researching this term for a long time now. We'll be releasing a white paper from Zadwell, and definitely we're looking forward to it. And for those who like when they hear this term for the first time, oh yeah, it looks like Internet of Things, right? I mean, how do you speak to those people? Like, oh yeah, it looks like Internet of Things, right? It's much larger than that. The vision is much larger than that, bigger than that. How do you explain it to those people? What is deepen?
Uh, yes, it is the Internet of Things, but it's
Yeah,
also a necessary economy of things, to borrow a term from my good friends at Peak. The economy of things is this idea that you should be able to contribute data or compute or other kinds of resources to a network and get rewarded for it. It of course has clear similarities with what Naval spoke about with the fifth protocol. Machines need to be able to exchange value with each other. So DePIN is the Internet of Things. It's also the economy of things. And ultimately, I think that what DePIN will become is something like the nervous system of AI. And
Hmm.
this is, something that the mountain and the mushroom told me. Uh,
Right.
AI can only deal with digital information, and the physical
Right.
world is not digital. So when
Right.
AI wants to act in the physical world, it has to
Right.
perceive and digitize it. And
Right.
if we think of this problem again with the self-driving coordinating cars, it gets a lot easier for the
Right.
cars to coordinate if they can exchange sensor data with each other. Like, wouldn't it be amazing if your car could ask the car that just went around the corner, is anyone crossing the street? Should I slow down already? And the car says, yeah, you should start slowing down already because there's someone around the corner here, right?
Right.
This kind
Right.
of collaborative machine perception, I think, is the inevitable future of what the economy will demand. Just more and
Right.
more efficient systems, and that means
Right.
that the machine AI will need infrastructure everywhere in the world to be able to perceive the world, and that becomes the nervous system of AI.
Right.
So
Right.
uh, the DePIN movement's ultimate destiny, I think, is to become the nervous system of AI. And projects like Peak and Helium and Natix and GeoDNet and other amazing DePIN projects. My suspicion is over time, more and more of these projects will merge and become one protocol to help make the world AI accessible. Like, that is my
Right.
for any VC listening. Here's a hypothesis that I think you should take with you for the next decade. The world needs to become AI accessible. The world needs to become AI accessible. What does that mean? Well, it means that robots, drones, self-driving cars, embodied AI, all of these things, to be effective in the world, they need a couple of things. In no particular order, they need connectivity, of course. Like, they actually need to be able to connect to the internet almost everywhere that they go. But they also need mapping so that they can find what they are looking for. But they also need positioning so that they can find themselves. But they also need some kind of machine identity so that they can, uh, find each other, talk to each other, trust each other, negotiate with each other. But they also need some kind of machine money, etc. Like, there's a checklist of things that you need to make the world AI accessible. It is roughly something like access to connectivity, access to hyperlocal compute, which we should drill down into later, access to mapping, access to positioning, access to some kind of machine identity, and access to machine money. Right? Without those six things, it gets very difficult for AI to actually be helpful in the real world. And we should remember that the World Bank still says that 70% of the world's economy is tied to physical locations and physical labor, meaning that AI, no matter how cool it is today, is at most helpful to 30% of the world economy. If we want to bring AI to the rest of the world economy, the majority of the world economy, we must teach AI to perceive and understand and navigate the physical world.
Got it. Got it. Infrastructure networks have existed for a long time. There has been infrastructure, there has been like data centers, different types of infrastructure and networks have existed for a long time, at least 30, 40 years or more than that. Somewhere along the way, I think they got it wronger with a lot of heavy centralization with many companies, big companies. You know it, I know it. We are users of that system for a long time now. Now a new paradigm has like evolved. It's evolving with the decentralization of things. How do you effectively decentralize not just networks but also like companies at large? Because like we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past again 20 years into the future, right?
I don't know how we decentralize our decision making in good ways.
Hmm.
Again, like, this is a big personal struggle for me because I see how the
Right.
centralization of decision making has helped the world's largest governments and companies be competitive.
Right.
no one will tell you when you start a startup that the best way to make decisions is by consensus. We
Right.
kind of know
Yeah.
inside of capitalism, when we talk about startups and great founders, we talk about founder mode and things like this, that
Right.
it's important to have a vision and have a mandate to execute on that vision. And decentralized decision making is not always, or maybe even rarely, the best way to
Right.
have progress. But progress may not be the only thing we want to optimize for. Democracies optimize for fairness, for example, and try to improve your each individual's quality of life and rights under the law. If you're optimizing for progress, you are gonna trade away some of that fairness. So the
Right.
best way to think about how should decisions be made in civilization can't be
Right.
answered before we've answered what are we actually optimizing for? What do we
Right.
want? Right? If we
Right.
want progress, then probably we don't want a decentralized decision making. If we want fair and equitable systems, then probably we do want a decentralized decision making. So the first conversation we need to have with ourselves as a civilization is, what do we want to do? What do we want? What is the kind of
Mm.
life that we want? Are we in a
Right.
headspace where we want to be sprinting towards progress for the next 2 decades, the way that China has been for the last 2 decades? Is that the headspace we're in? Or are we more in the
Right.
headspace of, no, 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 we have already produced so much wealth, and we want to make sure that this wealth is used in good ways to make sure that everyone has a good life and that we are happy. Life is not about work, life is about family
Right.
and these things. What do we want?
Right.
And before we've
Right.
had that conversation, it's hard to answer how should our decisions be made.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Just adding like my thoughts that I could be completely wrong on this because like I've seen that major big tech companies that I've used, like many others have used across the world. Yes, they've made very good decisions. And also at the same time, they've also made very bad decisions equally as well. And that are like, some are like very beneficial to the society. Some are like very detrimental to the society. We have seen both extremes as well. And many are, I'm seeing my observation is like people are not very super happy with the over centralization of things, let alone not just like the technology, but also the society at large, right? So that being said, Bitcoin itself, it seems to be its own movement, and quest for phenomenons like DePIN, decentralized infrastructure networks. Okay, fine, your network can be decentralized, but the decision making, yes, I think there's a. I don't know the answer to. Also, Nils, that's why I'm asking you also the question. But how do we arrive to humanity 2.0? I don't really know because, like, of course, they'll be making a lot of decisions. We have to make effective decision making. There's a CEO. What happens? The CEO departs, and then the next CEO comes in. The style of decision making is obviously going to change, right? So I don't really know. But we don't. But as humanity, as we evolve together, if we stop making the same mistakes that we did like 30 years ago again, I think then we are making progress. That's where I'm coming from.
I think in the grandest, most zoomed out view that we can take on humanity, the journey that we're on is a journey of it's a journey of increasing intercognition, the ability
Mm,
to think together. If we go back in time to the Paleolithic, we were hunter gatherers. We lived in small tribes. We did not yet have writing, and we lived in oral traditions, right?
right.
And oral traditions, we don't think about it today, but that was a very different state of mind, a different consciousness to exist in, because in an oral
Right.
tradition, any information that is not spoken uh, risks being lost forever. So VJ, if you and
Mm,
I have a tribe together and you learn how to make spears and you teach me how to make spears, but then both of us die, then spear making is lost. And we
mm,
see this happening in history, like in either Australia or New Zealand, I forget. we see evidence that the knowledge of how to make fire was at one point lost. The knowledge of how to make
Mm.
fire was at one point lost.
Wow.
So they knew how to make
Mm.
fire for thousands and thousands of years, but then something
Right.
happened that made it so that they did no longer have the ability to make fire. And oral tradition
Right.
always has this risk of
Right.
memetic extinction, right, where they've
Right.
lost information. And then we
Right.
invented writing, and writing was a huge change to the operating system of humanity, because all of a sudden information could survive without being spoken. It could be retrieved, it could be persisted,
Right.
and that was humanity. That was humanity 2.0. I think the invention of writing. And
Right.
then we went from writing to the printing press, which again, a completely new mode
Yeah.
of consciousness where information could be mass propagated. And we
Right.
went from writing to things like the radio, etc. And now ultimately, we live in the metaverse where we can kind of know what everyone is thinking all at once. Like that's
Yeah.
what Twitter is. Um, we are a very new species already, but what all of these inventions have had in common is that they're always making us more and more intercognitive. It makes it
Right.
it, it is turning us into an intercognitive computer. Like
Mm.
civilization is an intercognitive computer. And where
Right.
we are right now in history is that we're starting to add artificial intelligence to our intercognitive computer. We're learning how to
Right.
solve problems, not just together with each other, which we've been practicing for thousands of years now, but we're going to practice
Right.
how to solve problems together with AI as well.
Got it. Got it. No, very very interesting view actually. I've heard your talks before. Then while I was preparing for our conversation, I saw multiple of your keynotes. Sorry, my throat is like was a little under the weather a couple of days ago. That's my throat. But I was watching your keynotes and like I was trying to learn what you're trying to present with Auki and loved all of the presentation. I also observed that you're a deep thinker. I mean, from as I'm talking to you, you're a very deep thinking. You're a deep thinker actually. Where does that deep thinking or the motivation for that deep thinking come from? Was there like any of the books that you studied when you grew up, or like where does that come from?
I am a recovering philosophy student. The first, I dropped out of college, but what I was studying in college was philosophy. And
Mm.
taking a course on philosophy changed my life. The idea that it is worth asking why and keep
Mm.
asking why until you hit a wall,
Right.
very, very meaningful. The idea that the order of things can be questioned, and the realization that we invented civilization, and we can reinvent
Mm.
it, was hugely thought provoking and inspiring to me. I would highly recommend uh, anyone to take a year to study the history of ideas. Like, how did we get to where we are today? Because
Right.
philosophy has been a long journey of successive ideas building on top of each other, and it's clear that there's still a lot of thinking left to be done.
Right.
So, if you are a young listener, two things that you should consider: one, join the army for a little while; it's good for you, and the other is study philosophy for a while. It's good for you. That being said, I said I'm a recovering philosophy student because it
Right.
also has its downsides. There's a certain comfort in not questioning everything. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any particular philosopher that comes to your mind? Like when you say philosophy, I'm sure there are a bunch.
I think the best way to study philosophy is not to study the people, but study the order in which the ideas came.
Got
The
it.
most influential piece of philosophy that I consumed was something called the Teaching Company in the late 90s, early 2000s, was producing these recorded lectures, and they had Professor Daniel Robinson present the
Right.
history of ideas, right? Like,
Right.
how did we get from very, very early ideas of how to structure a society to where we are today? What happened when we invented religion? What happened when we invented
Right.
laws? When did we invent laws? Things
Yeah.
like this. That was hugely thought provoking. Professor
Got it.
Daniel Robinson, with a teaching company, putting out a series of lectures about the history of ideas.
Got it. Very, very interesting. That being said, like my dad, he talks about philosophy a lot, and there's a lot of philosophy books that he reads as well, and he recommends to me. And most of the time, the dads in conversations, like, the first thing is to do is to disagree first, right? I mean, like, I've disagreed a lot, and then later you get back, okay, fine, this is what he was meant, like 15 years ago, right? So I'm on that, like, recovering son mode as well, when it comes to philosophy and things like that. Slightly a different topic, but slightly adjacent to that topic, is like philosophy is very comforting, like you said, and like we could read all the philosophy and then just dwell in it and love it, right? So that being said, like, society also needs progress, and the way progress has been defined, at least, and it's getting redefined as we speak as well. I mean, the way it is getting redefined with Hong Kong and China is very different. And the way it was like redefined like 250 years ago, 250 years ago, with founding of the US was very different, right? So they were in the notion that capitalism is the way to progress society, and that's going to give us individualistic freedom and whatnot. So that's the way the founding fathers of US had envisioned. And with the last 30, 40, 50 years, you can see how the growth of China has massively impacted the global growth as well. So how do you see socialism and capitalism basically playing into a role of like the modern civilization?
I don't know if either socialism or capitalism will survive the rise of AI. I think
Mm,
we don't
interesting.
know what what
Right.
happens next. Uh, the interesting thing about capitalism, in its purest form, is that you let natural selection figure out resource distribution. Supply and
Right.
demand is really just another perspective on natural selection and survival of the fittest. Um,
Right.
and natural selection, of course, may be the most powerful force that we know in the universe in terms of creating complex and fit systems. But we should also remember that artificial selection is very powerful, right? And a lot of
Mm,
our civilization is built on the fact that we learned how to do artificial selection, that we could domesticate animals through artificial selection, that we could domesticate plants through artificial selection, and um, that we can even um, craft our meme pool, like our culture, through artificial selection.
right.
And capitalism, I think, if we think of capitalism as natural selection, capitalism plus a little bit of planning and foresight and the willingness to make sacrifices every now and then, take a little bit of discomfort today for
Right.
a greater benefit tomorrow, which I think is something that democracies are not as good as. Democracies are not good at voting for, let's be uncomfortable today so we can be comfortable tomorrow. That's not historically something that democracies have been good at. There is some kind of
Right.
balance to be struck between leaning on the incredibly powerful force of natural selection and free and open markets, while also the power of human cognition and imagination and discipline to set a goal of where do we want to be and what are we willing to sacrifice to get there.
Got it. Got it. No, very, very interesting. I've always had this question in terms of like, yeah, humanity is evolving, and there is a East and there is a West, and there is socialism and capitalism, and there are like when you if you have 1,000 people, I'm sure they find it go this way, and another find it probably go this way. So it's very different. It was very difficult to find balance in between that, but at the same time, humanity needs to progress forward. I think that is very important, and with artificial intelligence in the play, and I think if it can benefit humanity, I'm all for it. So that's where I come from. Speaking of AR and spatial computing, uh, and what is the vision for AR and spatial computing when it comes to Auki?
I believe that augmented reality presents the next big paradigm shift in human communication. And I mean that on the order of the invention of writing, the invention of the printing press, the invention of the radio, the invention of the internet. The invention of
Right.
augmented reality will, in the fullness of time, be seen as the next big leap of that order of magnitude of significance. Because what
Right.
augmented reality allows us to do um, is to shape the perception of other people and their cognition in very meaningful ways. In fact, I would argue that augmented reality is, in a sense, the oldest technological project that humanity has. It is the oldest
Mm.
technological project that humanity has, because language itself, in a very non-trivial way, is augmented reality technology. There's a story I like to tell that helps illustrate that point. VJ, if we were to imagine that we were walking
Right.
through a forest together, right? We imagine we're walking
Right.
through a forest together, and we come across a fallen tree. If I
Mm.
point at that fallen tree and I say, "Hey, VJ, look at that beautiful couch," by
Mm.
describing the falling tree as a couch, I actually impact your perception of the thing. You can now
Right.
see the sittingness of this thing. It may have been in your consciousness before, but now it definitely is. This is what
Right.
language is for. Language is for coordinating the intercognitive computer. Language is
Right.
for creating intersubjectivity between humans so that we perceive the world the same way, so that we can process the world the same way, and yeah, coordinate the intercognitive computer. And a lot of human communication then boils down to how well can we communicate with each other in terms of bandwidth. How much information can we communicate per minute, and how lossy is our signal. But you can think of, like, signal per minute is a very important metric to be checking in human language. And
Right.
the way that we improve these things today is that we invent new words. Like, you will notice that any kind of great enterprise or human passion will develop a language of its own, terms of its own. And the way to think about that from an engineering perspective is that we're inventing new compression algorithms. We're inventing new
Mm.
compression algorithms. The kind
Right.
of special jargon and lingo that is created within enterprises and fields of interest are ways for humans to communicate more information in less time. That's why we do it, right? We
Mm.
invent new words so that we can communicate more information in less time. So we're always inventing these new compression algorithms. Context is great compression. And
Right.
uh, putting information in space is an incredibly powerful way to compress information, right? Imagine that you and I are on the 28th floor of my building where I happen to live, and we're looking out across this big city, and
Mm-hmm.
I spot something super interesting in a window, right? Like, oh my God,
Mm.
there's a man held at gunpoint at one of these windows, and I want you to find that window so you can see it. But there are thousands of windows, right? And I have to
Right.
guide your attention to that. I'd be like, oh, it's the light brown building next to the black one, and then 10 windows down from the top on the left. That's a lot of
Yeah.
information that I would have to describe that. Now compare that with if you and I were wearing AR glasses and I could just make
Right.
a 3D note appear that just says here. One word, here. We can even remove the word. It's just a red dot,
Got it.
right?
Yeah.
This is augmented reality allows us to compress information in very, very meaningful ways. We're using this
Mm.
already for the retail industry, like practically today, where we're
Right.
helping store staff leave digital notes for each other in physical space. So all of a sudden, you can leave a note like, fix this. That's the only thing you have to write. But
Right.
included in the note is also the image of the
The
thing you're talking
location.
about, That's great. But also the location and how to find your way there with AR navigation and everything. So in just
Got
a
it.
few seconds, you can communicate something that may have taken minutes to communicate before. And it's this
Got
power
it.
to communicate more information in a shorter period of time and richer information that makes me
Right.
believe that augmented reality is just an unstoppable force. Right now I am raising my first child. I have an 18-month-old son, and I am struggling with how do you teach a child to understand the concept of scale? How do you
Right.
tell a child that has never seen an elephant in real life that elephants are very big? How do
Right.
you teach a child that an elephant is very big? Do you know a great way to do it? Augmented reality, actually. Because with
Mm.
augmented reality, I can just show my son, this is how big an elephant is.
Wow. Yeah. I never had an AR conversation about teaching a child how big an elephant will be. Yeah, that's a very interesting way of looking at it. Uh, and is that, speaking of like tagging in the physical location when you're sharing the location information with somebody else, is that what you're calling the peer-to-peer positioning? Is that what it is?
No, peer-to-peer positioning is something else. Peer-to-peer positioning is the idea that instead of using absolute global reference markers of where you are, you
Mm-hmm.
need to allow two devices to describe where they are relative to each other, which is something that we as humans do all the time. Actually, again,
Right.
if we are walking through the forest, right? And I say, "Hey, look over there at your 2 o'clock," right?
Mm.
That's something that is relative to you. But if I say, look where I'm pointing, that's relative to me. Or, oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
just 20 meters behind me. That's something relative to me. We don't communicate in human language. We're like, oh, uh, the fallen tree that would be such a nice couch was at this and that coordinate. That's not how we talk to each other, because it's not the most
Right.
efficient way to talk to each other unless you happen to have perfect knowledge of all times of where you are, which neither humans nor machines do. So peer-to-peer
Got it.
positioning is the idea that you need to be able to establish a shared spatial context without reference to some global marker.
Got it. That being said, are there any major technological challenges or otherwise to get to the vision uh, from a ground up standpoint? Because is adoption a problem, or because like how prepared is a society to basically to get on this like vision and start using it tomorrow, right?
There are many challenges culturally,
Right.
technically. There's a lot that needs to be done.
Right.
Any great opportunity is only there because there's work to be done. Um,
100%.
I think that the core challenge, the tough black pill to swallow, is that machines don't have an inherent understanding of where they are in the world. And the
Right.
GPS is a line of sight based technology
Mm.
that is never going to work indoors and is always going to work very poorly in dense urban environments. And that we need
Right.
some kind of new invention to tell machines
Right.
where they are. That's not the GPS. That is
Right.
unintuitive and a tough pill to swallow. But all of the major tech companies in the world now have swallowed that pill, and most of them, all of them actually, are like all of the big companies in the top 10 are spending billions on what's called visual positioning. Visual
Mm.
positioning, which is the idea that if you compare what you're seeing to a model of the world to figure out where you are. That's kind of intuitively, how we navigate too. We look at the world to recognize where we are.
Right.
The technical challenge with visual positioning is, when a computer needs to make a comparison of two things, the data of the
Right.
two things need to be where the compute is, right? So that means we're
Right.
either going to send the model of the world to the device, or we're
Mm.
going to send what the device is seeing to the model of the world. And
Right.
one of those is a lot more practical than the other, which is to send the
Right.
much smaller data of what are you looking at over to the model of the world, which is much too big to send to the device. It would take too much time. It would be too expensive. And what that
Right.
means, unfortunately, is that the future of positioning is tell me what you're looking at and I'll tell you where you are. So
Right.
all of these big companies have made systems that they understand is going to be the future of how AR glasses navigate the world. Like, let me be
Right.
100% clear. Your AR glasses don't even need a GPS. Like, it's completely wasted, right? AR glasses need things like visual positioning. And all of the major tech companies have built centralized visual positioning, meaning that they expect in the future where you put on AR glasses, they will literally know what you're looking at all times. They will know what you're
Mm,
looking at all times. And you have to trust them to not look. You have to trust them to not
got it.
look at that data. And you have to trust them, even though, people like
That's a
Elon
lot.
Musk
Yeah.
will tell you that right now, the most valuable data that they could get to AGI is like first person video, actually. If you listen to AI scientists, what kind of data do they want? They want first person video. An
Right.
AI researcher's wet dream is being able to look through your eyes. And wouldn't you know it, all the big tech companies have already built exactly that technology. So they will
Right.
look. They will say it's for national security. They will say it's because we have to
100%.
beat China. They will say whatever they want to make money. But
Yeah.
what they're gonna do is they're gonna know what you are looking at all times, which is why I think we
Yeah.
as the decentralization movement have to um, provide an alternative to centralized visual positioning. And I think we're incredibly lucky that the actual problem of machine perception and machine positioning is actually better solved by a DePIN than by a
Mm,
centralized company, right? So we're not
got it.
necessarily fighting uphill here. Sure, the enemy has more resources than we do today. They are more coordinated than we are today. But the power of the decentralization movement is that we can do civilization scale infrastructure that is funded, owned, and operated by the people democratically. And deep in projects such as ourselves and the other projects I mentioned, shout out to Peak, to GeoNet, to Natix, to Helium.
Yeah.
These are some of my favorite deep in projects. Uh, they are already showing the Web 2 world how competitive DePIN is and that we can outperform the old economic models of how to deploy infrastructure in the world.
Got it. I mean, especially when it comes to like companies approaching it like with much larger uh, footprint and capital and whatnot, like is there's always a narrative of like, oh yeah, if it's super convenient for them, people wouldn't even like blink twice. They're just going to tap the button and keep using it, right? And you've seen it time and time again last like 20 years, like it has been the norm, right? Then the needs are addressed last, but the wants are addressed first, right? So how do we play the card, especially when the companies are after addressing the wants first?
You have to build a better product. That's it. You have to
Mm.
build a better product.
And make it
And
a
I think
want,
there's a
maybe.
Yeah, I think there's a very clear path to building a better product with DePIN, like a superior product. Not just like, oh, it's
Right.
morally superior. No, like, no, it's technically superior. It's economically
Got it.
superior. It will win if we build it, right? It will win if we build it. And it's up to us as the decentralization movement to actually build it. Because if we build it,
Mm.
we will win.
Got it. Got it. The of course, beyond challenges, and the vision is always to look at betterment. And what do you think the next 5 years or 10 years the impact on society will be when we really start applying these visions to actual reality? How will people receive it?
I think that bringing spatial AI into the world, what we are working on, helping AI understand the physical world, is
Right.
going to create a huge productivity boost. And uh, people that have been on the lower end of the productivity scale will all of a sudden have a much greater economic output, perform much more valuable work. Just as we've seen things like LLMs increase the output of talented programmers, we will see spatial AI increase the output of people out there doing physical jobs. Like we will have much more efficient and happy retail workers, just like we're having more happy and efficient programmers. Um, and I think we're going to see a lot of those changes already in the next 5 years. We're going to see our society become more efficient as humans learn to communicate more effectively with each other, but also communicate more effectively with machines, and machines learn to communicate more effectively with each other. I think that spatial computing, augmented reality, robotics, DePIN, all of these things are part. There's a reason these things are happening at the same time. There's a reason
Right.
these things are happening at the same time. This is what the great intercognitive computer needs and wants, right? Our civilization is choosing to build these things because it needs to increase the bandwidth of the intercognitive computer. You know, increase bandwidth, decrease latency. Shout out Mert.
Yeah, got it. I always had this question, Nils. I know some portion of it, but maybe I think it's best to ask you about like Auki. And like I think four terms I want to understand directly from you is like Auki, Posemesh, Convergent, and Matterless Studios. Like quickly, did you want to like how do you like what are these different terms called, and how should people approach it?
So the Auki network is the actual instantiation, implementation of the Posemesh protocol that we've invented. So the Posemesh is a protocol for how these machines can talk to each other. And our specific deployment, like our network that we've deployed, that's the Auki network. And it's built by the Auki Labs, right? So Auki Labs builds the Auki network, which is an implementation of the Posemesh protocol. Uh, Matterless is the old, or it's technically the legal name of one of our two legal entities. Um,
Okay.
Matterless, which now just does business under the name Auki Labs. We've kind of retired the name Matterless in our branding. But what
Okay.
Matterless does, what our application studio does, is build applications on top of the Auki network. One, to make money building those applications, but more importantly, to show the rest of the world what you can do with this technology, right? Like, what can you do with spatial AI? So the Auki network has been subsidizing this application company to build example products on the network to create demand and inspire people to build more things. And the product that we put out for retail, we used to call it Convergent, but we recently shortened it to the much shorter, simpler name Cactus. So Cactus is the product that Matterless Studios is building on top of the Auki network, which is an instantiation
Mm.
of the Posemesh protocol invented by Auki Labs.
Got it. Got it. No, thanks for that. Now, I'm just going to make sure like I understand those different terminologies when I replay and watch it. So thanks for explaining it. So it's like just quickly talking about AR and robotics, of course. There's obviously going to be regulatory bodies around the globe regulating it. How do you see the regulatory frameworks playing a role, and should there be more regulations around it, or should there be like no less regulations to help progress? So how do you see, especially AR and robotics and regulations?
I think it is almost inevitable that we as a civilization are going to want to regulate robotics, drones, and AR. Like, just to start
Mm.
with AR, uh, should it be legal to make appear on someone's AR glasses a completely photorealistic car accident happening in front of you while you're driving on the highway, which increases the risk that you end up in a car accident yourself? Probably that shouldn't be allowed. Probably shouldn't be allowed to put distracting information in places where it would endanger other people's lives. And I imagine that
Mm.
government, in a world where everyone is wearing AR glasses, I imagine that government is either going to say you're not allowed to wear your AR glasses in the car, or they will
Mm.
say you're not allowed to put distracting information in the AR glasses when you're in the car, right? So There will need to be regulation about this. I'm sure we as parents will want to say things like, no one gets to render pornographic material in our kindergartens, right?
Right.
We are going to want to restrict what is happening in the digital layer on top of the world the same way that we're restricting what happens on the internet today. The internet is not complete anarchy. We don't like complete anarchy, it turns out. But the
Right.
same thing for drones and robotics. Like, do you want to allow a visiting robot that can run at 80 kilometers an hour to run at 80 kilometers an hour down a hallway in a school, with the risk of impacting, colliding with a child? No, you're going to want to have rules
Right.
that, like, look, no running in the hallway, etc. Um,
Right.
Same thing with drones. Like here in Hong Kong, there are already rules around where are you allowed to fly drones, because it's so easy to look into someone's bedroom when you're in such a three-dimensional city, right? Like it's
Right.
trivial to spy on people's most intimate moments with a drone in Hong Kong. So there are regulations that prevent you from how close to a building can you fly, etc. And I think we're going to want that. And same thing, if we want to recover all of that lost time in Beijing traffic, the way to coordinate is also by establishing a couple of ground rules, right? Like one, you must connect to the coordination network. You must connect to the coordination network. You are not
Right.
allowed to drive faster than this or that. You're not allowed to lie about your location, etc. And if you do those things, you will not be allowed on the road. And I think we'll be motivated to put those kinds of rules in place because, of course, humanity would want their weekly pyramids back.
Right. Got it. Got it. And the way we answer the questions to privacy enthusiasts is basically suggesting that, oh, no, it's going to be a decentralized information and you will be able to control the information that you are sharing with these companies. Is that going to be the answer to the privacy enthusiasts?
It's about removing one central authority that gets to collect all of this data and be the complete surveillance machine. Instead,
Right. Right.
look, in visual positioning, which almost certainly is the future, you're always going to have to put either the model to the device or the device imagery to the model. And it's still going to
Right.
be that you send someone what you see to find out where you are. The difference is that we want to reduce this privacy impact to the smallest possible privacy impact, which is between you and the venue that you're visiting, right? Like
Right.
when you are walking across Hong Kong Airport already knows that you're in there, right? You're already on the CCTV cameras, but there's no reason for
Right.
Mark Zuckerberg to also know that you stopped at Starbucks in the Hong Kong airport. And, we don't need a third party to be spying on these private interactions. Like the
Right.
future that I imagine, that was revealed to me by the mushroom is one where my AR glasses at home connect to my computer at home to understand my physical space and reduce some of the computational load of my glasses. And when you visit my home, when you come over for dinner, your glasses connect to my computer automatically as well. And like, sure, now I know uh, a little bit about what you are looking at in my home, but it's just me in my home, right? And we don't need is for Mark Zuckerberg to also have this information.
Got it. Got it. No, makes sense. And with Auki and its branding, and then especially when I was watching the keynote, I had this question was like, after you mentioned Auki, it also says share your vision, right? What does share your vision mean? It can mean a lot of different things, right? What does share your vision mean for from an Auki Labs perspective?
Share your vision is a bit of a play on words, both that, we want our root is in wanting to establish shared augmented reality, that we can literally see the same digital content in the same physical space, so that you can show me what you see. Literally share your vision, share what you're seeing. But it's also trying to communicate something deeper about the fact that we are an intercognitive computer, right? And you need to be able to communicate what it is you want to achieve in the world to be able to recruit other people to help you do these things, right? And the reason we want to put augmented reality and spatial computing and the power that this brings into the hands of people is so that they can make themselves understood, so that we become a better intercognitive computer, so that we can build greater things together. Share your vision is a reminder for us what this whole game is about. It's about making human beings understand each other better.
Got it. Got it. The more we discuss about it, I mean, just a question. I didn't have it prepared as a question. I think what the Elon is trying to do with Neuralink, as you're aware, and he's trying to put a chip on your head, and he's trying to see the cognitive ability, and there are a lot of like pros and cons, obviously, and it's basically trying to understand how the human brain is wired and how it is thinking and how it is processing. It's basically the data out of the human brain. If you look at bits and bytes, right? So that's what it is. Likewise with AR, I think it's all about how the iris operates and like how where is it looking at, what it is doing, right? I think does it just come down to that?
I think that if you can manifest your imagination directly in my visual field, that is the closest thing to telepathy. Like it's the final stop, or the second to final stop, the penultimate stop in human
Got it.
communication is this shared augmented
Right.
reality. And the only step after that, the only thing that's left after that is direct telepathic communication. If you can manifest your imagination directly in my field of view, that is as close as we can get to telepathy. Ultimately, I hope that Neuralink will connect to the Posemesh. I believe that they will. This is the point of saying that there's a missing sixth protocol. While Elon is working on capturing the input output of the brain, we still need to establish this sixth protocol so that our brains can communicate with each other, so that we can communicate with each other about space and understand things. If you want to imagine a world where, again, we're looking out the window and I'm trying to help you find the window where we see someone being held at gunpoint. If we want that to be able to be done telepathically, it is
Right.
my strong opinion as an engineer that we're not going to get there without helping our brains establish this shared sense of space.
Got it. I just have a couple of videos I just want to show you and get your feedback on that.
We can see those chopsticks now in here.
Booster, when the current shutdown.
Make a bill ahead.
At the launch tower.
Are you kidding me?
Your quick thoughts. There are multiple things in that going on, like the Optimus, and of course, and there's like the Mars mission with SpaceX, and the future of like transportation and things like that. So your quick thoughts on that.
SpaceX is a human triumph. Absolutely. SpaceX is a human triumph. When it comes to the other things on there, the Optimus and the Robovan, Elon needs to spend more time in China. The Optimus robot is not the cutting edge of humanoid robotics. You can buy a robot more capable than the Optimus is today on the market and get it delivered within 2 months in China for less than what Elon says he will charge for the Optimus in the future. Right? So even when Elon finishes the Optimus, it will already not be competitive. Right? If Elon builds what he says he's gonna build, that he hasn't built yet, it's still not going to be competitive. I'm going to need to lower the curtain here, I see, because we're getting a little bit of glare.
Sure, go
Give
ahead.
me just a second.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so even if Elon delivers what he says he's going to deliver, that's already not
Right.
going to be a competitive product. That's already not
Right.
going to be a competitive product. And things like the
Right.
Robovan have been in live operation in China since 2016.
I saw that.
Right? So America needs to wake up. Like, you are a decade behind. You are a decade behind. You are a decade behind. Like this is not a drill. This is happening.
No, thanks for sharing that. Let me play the second video for you.
What is this archaic system?
Mother's maiden name? Ebowitz?
You're telling me this guy is how things get verified.
That's my job.
I'm just saying, you shouldn't have to buy $10 worth of gum if you just want 79 cents worth of gum. Why do you get charged your money to take your money from your account? And if you're out of money, they charge you for being out of money?
What?
An overseas transfer takes 5 days?
Business days.
Why?
What are they using? A Zeppelin?
I deposit the check Monday.
But Monday was a bank holiday.
Why is this the way it is?
A bank holiday?
This system
What's a bank holiday?
makes no sense.
This makes no sense.
Who designed this system?
Ma'am?
Is this really the best we can do?
Hello?
Don't we deserve better?
Your
That's cool.
quick
I
thoughts.
haven't seen that before, but yeah, that's very cool. There's clearly a lot of room to improve the financial system. There's clearly need for that. It's not my personal passion. In fact, I'm a little bit antagonistic towards the DeFi movement because I think it's taking up a little bit too much oxygen. A sobering stat that I like to remind people of is that in the peak of the previous bull run, the metaverse bull run, Mark Zuckerberg fired more engineers than there were engineers active in the Web3 movement. Mark Zuckerberg fired more engineers than there were engineers in the entire Web3 movement. The
Right.
Web3 movement has a lot of money, but it's very poor on human capital. There are very few people in crypto engineering, which is why crypto engineers are so incredibly expensive. Because even today, there's probably fewer than 9,000 active crypto engineers in the United States, right?
Right.
There's like 9,000 engineers working at Apple campus. It's
Yeah.
crazy how talent poor our industry still is. And I think a big reason for this is it's not sexy and fun enough for engineers to go work on the financial system, right? And I understand that fixing the financial system is important, but if we want to win, we need to start attracting the most scarce resource of all, which is human talent. Like there's very little we can do there to just massively expand the pool of human talent. We need to attract human talent. And working on the finance system is demonstrably not attracting enough human talent. So I think the decentralization movement is already starting to attract completely new talent with the DePIN movement. And you see people that have been aware of crypto for many, many years, but haven't bothered contributing until now. I've been following crypto since 2012 maybe, and I haven't bothered contributing to the wider decentralization movement until now, because it's just now when we're building DePIN, when we're building the nervous system for AI, that this is all of a sudden an interesting enough problem to work on. And I know that many other DePIN founders have the exact same background. These are people that were experts in their fields before and saw that, oh, wow, decentralized infrastructure can actually solve this industry problem. Whereas a lot of other crypto companies are founded by, ex-marketers, ex-bankers, ex-consultants, and there are very few engineers. But a lot of DePIN projects are founded by engineers, and just that should make you notice how valuable this movement is.
Got it. Quick question on that, just a follow-up question on that, because the moment we clip that and put it out, some of the folks from the Web3 folks that I'm seeing on Twitter or otherwise, their first comment might be, oh no, Web3 is not Bitcoin and crypto is not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is Bitcoin and crypto is crypto, and all other coins are like shit coins, right? That's their standard way of responding to it. And definitely they're not looking at Bitcoin as the world of DeFi. For example, countries like El Salvador, as you might know, they have adopted it to be a legal tender, Bitcoin to be a legal tender. So they are really passionate about like spreading this movement in a totally different way. I just happened to attend a Bitcoin community meetup and really just wanted to catch up like what's really going on after my podcast with one of the Bitcoin founders, right? So I just really wanted to understand that. So how do you respond to those comments?
I think that most coins are shit coins. That's true. Like I'm not going to argue with that.
Right.
I think
Right.
that almost every crypto project is either, choosing the wrong stack for solving their problem. They're just very passionate about blockchain, so they involve blockchain in ways that aren't, truly helpful, or it's just a straight up grift or a scam, right? So, it's either naive and misinformed, or it's a grift and a scam. And that's much more than 99% of the projects. And I mean, like, I'm not trying to exaggerate. It's more than 99% of the projects are either woefully naive or direct grifts and scams.
Got it.
But that doesn't mean that there aren't at least, dozens, if not possibly hundreds of really, I personally don't think it's that high. I think it's at most dozens of projects in the decentralization world that are solving really, really meaningful things. Like I would never call, like GeoDNet a shitcoin. Like absolutely not. They're solving a real fucking problem in the world, and they are using native machine money to make that work. And could you have built it on Bitcoin? In my opinion, no. Right? Like maybe we'll get there, but in my opinion, no. I think that's also why Naval pulled down that article from 2014, because he realized you can't build all of these things on Bitcoin. It's not a fast and performant enough protocol to handle things like this. We need faster internet money. Yes, Bitcoin is a lot faster than a 5-day international wire, but a 5-day international wire and the speed of Bitcoin are equally bad from the point of view of a robot. Like they are, like both Mars and Uranus. If the grocery store was on Mars or Uranus, you don't care which one of those is further away, because both of them are way too far away, right? And Bitcoin is just way too slow. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin is faster than the international banking system. It is way too slow, unacceptably slow. You're not going to build the future of robotics on Bitcoin. Like that's not going to happen.
No. You need a. When you hear to folks like Michael Saylor, he's going to pitch to Microsoft. Looks like very soon. That's what I saw the other day. And he always comes with there's no second best and things like that. Maybe it's for a different day, different conversation. But like let's move on to a different topic. Nils, I just want to get you some quick like rapid fire questions, and then like just to get to know you a little bit more, some fun questions, and some of the interesting motivations and choices that you've made along your life. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more about you, right? First question is like you can answer with a short phrase or one or a couple of lines. That's fine. You don't have to really explain it. But if you want to explain, just go ahead. First question, like 2 books that you think change your life.
The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. Practical Ethics by Peter Singer.
Those are the 2 books. Okay, got it. 2 people that you think I should go and talk to on the Pathfinders podcast that are going to be valuable for anyone listening. Who do you think would be those 2 people?
Leonard from Peak and Mike from GeoDNet.
Got it. A movie that you can keep watching over and over again. Anytime you play it, you can still watch it. Which movie that comes to mind?
Ghost in the Shell. The original animated Ghost in the Shell.
Nice. When it comes to AR development, is there a particular operating system that you prefer, and especially with like Android or iOS, is there a particular operating system that you prefer?
iOS every day of the week. It's not even close. Apple have really embraced becoming a spatial computing company. So the
Right.
spatial computing capabilities run so deep, like it's down at the chip level of the iPhone. It's not a comparable product anymore. The iPhone is a spatial computer, and Android
Right.
phones can LARP spatial computers. Like iOS is just way better for AR. It's not close.
Got it. Got it. Is there a favorite AR game or app that you use and you've come across?
Floorcraft, the game that we made. It's available in the App Store.
There you go.
Floorcraft Blast. That's my favorite AR game.
Yeah. If there is one piece of like AR tech or gadget that you want to wear it all day, what would you wear?
Sorry, what was the question?
What would be that gadget? If there is an AR gadget or a tech that you would wear it all day, what would it be?
No, there's nothing you could wear all day yet. We're pretty far from that. A pair of all-day AR glasses would probably have to weigh less than 40 grams, and there's nothing like that on the market today. So
Got it.
there's nothing yet that I would want to wear all day.
If we were to like have a device and if you want to augment it, what is the first thing you would augment in your office using AR?
Leaving notes for staff, absolutely. Like reminders of things that need to get done. It's just super powerful to leave notes for your colleagues, for your friends in AR space.
Got it. Is there a favorite meme that you love about AR or tech in general?
DePIN is an inevitable global movement. Is a meme that I really appreciate. But I think deeper than that, DePIN is the nervous system of AI, is a meme I really resonate with.
Got it. Got it. If someone has to hang out with you, whether it's going to be coffee, tea, or is there a particular drink that you would recommend?
I wish I would answer tea, but it's probably going to be coffee. I drink way too much coffee, but I'm always happy to hang out in nature, either by a bonfire or on a hike, and
Got
maybe
it.
with some natural medicinal enhancements to the conversation.
There you go. Got it. So is that your like if you're not working, if you're not like doing Auki, like trekking, and like is nature the best way to unwind for you?
Yeah, I try to do regular bonfires where you're not supposed to bring any alcohol, and we gather the firewood together, we saw the wood together, we build the fire together, we cook together on the fire, and we have either just a nice spiritual moment or a deep conversation. And if not a bonfire, long and grueling hikes in the beautiful mountainous nature of Hong Kong.
Got it.
Like these last 2 weekends, I did very, very long hikes to wrestle with the mountain god and find a bit of clarity. And it's very, very rewarding.
Got it. No, thanks for sharing. Elon once said that like being a founder and starting a company, it's like eating glass and staring at the abyss, right? How do you resonate to that? Like, how do you respond to that?
A startup, if you're doing it right, sucks. Yeah. If you're not having a really, really tough time, you're not going to win, right? It's like going to the gym is supposed to be tough. If you go to the gym every day and you're not even breaking a sweat, you're like, oh, this was a breeze. It's like, yeah, you're not working out, right? Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
A startup hurts, and if it doesn't hurt, you're not going to win.
Yeah. I'm sure like there'll be a lot of like fellow founders and other entrepreneurs watching it. Like, what are the like top 3 lessons that you would probably bring back from your like decades of entrepreneurial journey?
understand that while VCs want to help you, their incentives are not your incentives are not aligned. They ultimately want different outcomes from you, and it's very important to understand when you take on VC capital that what is a successful outcome for you is not the same as what is a successful outcome for them. And a lot of entrepreneurs don't grok that when they enter into these relationships. So that's an important piece to understand. Another is that you should almost never take advice from the VCs. Take advice from other founders, because again, there are misaligned incentives, but also investing in companies is not the same thing as building companies. It's not, right? If you wanted to become a pro athlete, right, you go talk to other athletes, not people that bet on sports. That is a perfect one-to-one analogy. It is in no way unfair, right? If you wanted to become good at horse racing, go talk to a jockey, not to someone that bets on horses.
Right.
So that's two important things to remember about VCs. The third is that you should not look for work-life balance. You should look for work that feels like your life's work, so that you don't have to worry about work-life balance, because it is going to be really, really tough. If you just want a job with work-life balance, don't start a startup. Don't do that, right? So again, to just reiterate, my three pieces of wisdom for people starting their entrepreneurial journey is: understand that you don't have perfect incentive alignment with your VCs. It's important to understand that they want different outcomes than you do. Don't take advice from anyone whose advice you wouldn't pay for. Talk to other founders rather than other VCs. And yeah, number three, I already forgot actually. What was the third piece of advice I gave?
I was actually like listening to you.
So yeah, the
But
third piece of
I'll have
advice
to
is keep
replay
your
it.
pieces of advice to two pieces of advice, because that's easier to remember.
Two piece. That's right. I
Work-life
just had
balance.
this
That
other
was it.
question.
Like don't
Work-life balance. Yeah.
don't aspire for work-life balance. Find work that feels meaningful instead, so that you spend all your time doing it.
Got it. Got it. I just had this one other question as you were speaking. I think it's more of like you have spent a lot of time in different parts of the world and like sharing your mission, vision to so many people, and you interact with so many people, and you've seen they buying it, not buying it, questioning it, different things, right? And I'm sure you have learned a lot of like life lessons also. What do you think would be your? Let's bring it to two lessons. What do you think would be like top two lessons that you want to share it with anyone, to the rest of humanity? Okay, these are my top two life lessons that I've learned coming from Sweden to Hong Kong, all the way.
Being understood is harder than you think. It takes a lot of empathy and imagination to correctly model what is going on in the other person's mind. And the most
Right.
common mistake that we do is that we assume people know things that we know, or are currently thinking about things that we think about. You have to treat every conversation as a construction site, where you start with establishing the scaffolding that you need to then build the rest of the case. Every conversation is a first conversation. Don't be afraid to repeat yourself, because they don't know what you know. Spread good
Got it.
memes. Number two, my personal life motto.
Right.
Focus on your memetic output, and think
Right.
about what is your memetic diet. Like, what are you putting out there? Why are you putting these things out there?
Right.
Because if there is, if your memetic output is righteous, people will resonate with you. So be
Right.
mindful of your memetic diet and your memetic output, and people will resonate more with you. Spread good memes.
Got it. Probably last two questions for today's conversation. If AR and spatial computing were to be an animal, which animal would it be?
It would be an ant hill. AR and spatial computing will help us become more intercognitive. It will help us become more intercognitive. So
Right.
it's an anthill.
Got it. Got it. This is probably the last question. Authenticity. The word authenticity. How do you see that? How do you see that word?
One of our core memetic pillars for the company is that we want to practice radical sincerity, because we think it's very important for the development and maintenance of the intercognitive computer that is our community.
Right.
Like, it's hard to understand each other if you're not being sincere, and it's hard
Right.
to understand yourself if you're not being sincere. Like, people forget how incredibly easy it is to lie to yourself. It's incredibly easy to lie to yourself. We do it about our bags every day, right? It's very easy to lie
Right.
to yourself. And being sincere, like saying what you mean, but also making sure that you actually mean what you say, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you mean what you say. And that will help you resonate more with other humans and make a beautiful, just, and righteous intercognitive memetic computer together.
Got it. Nils Pihl, it was an absolute pleasure talking to you. We spent quite a bit of time going through the different topics, connecting from like south of Edmonton to Hong Kong. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and your patience with me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's do another one on one of the mountains here in Hong Kong. Please come visit.
Definitely. Will do. Will do.